I'm Christina. Right now, I'm being demanded for money over the phone.
So bring $5,500 to the park right now. You got that?
A man yells from the other end of the line. He doesn't identify himself, nor does he specify which park. Moreover, without any reason or introduction, he just keeps repeating, bring $5,500. Displaying his foolishness without any shame. That thought crossed my mind.
Hey, are you listening?
His sudden shout startles me. Then, I hesitated before replying. Yes, I'm listening?
Then hurry up and get to the park.
Before that, just, one thing. Who are you? When I asked that, the man on the other end suddenly fell silent. It seems he thought it would be bad if his identity was revealed. I thought to myself, surely he understands that much, when suddenly the man started yelling at me again.
Who cares who I am? Just bring the money quickly.
A line straight out of a template. There seemed no point in continuing the conversation, so I ventured a guess. I've been thinking from the start. You're Victor, aren't you?
The
man on the phone stumbled over his words. Right. I knew who the man was from the beginning. The caller was my husband's brother. In other words, my brother-in-law, Victor. I recognized his voice. But Victor called me from his own mobile phone to mine. Did he really think I wouldn't recognize him? I was fully astonished. But anyway, why was Victor demanding money from me? I couldn't understand. As I was pondering this, Victor said,
You figured it out, huh?
Of course, you're calling from your own mobile phone.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true.
Victor, who laughed awkwardly. As if to brush it off, I sighed and asked, So, what's your real business?
It's related to the money I mentioned earlier.
Victor began his detailed story after this preface. Victor and my husband Edwards both work at the same metalworking factory. The factory is run by Edwards' family, with most of the executives being Edwards' relatives. Since Edward's father is a president, Victor and Edward are in line to take over the factory. So Victor and Edwards are both working as executive candidates. According to Victor's story, Edward seems to be misusing his position for fraud. Fake transactions, really, Victor? I exclaimed out loud. Then Victor, in a calm voice, said,
That's right. Edwards embezzled company money. It adds up to $5,500.
No way! I was speechless, but at the same time, I thought of something. Edwards has never been obsessed with money. He's not interested in brands and has almost no desire for material things. He doesn't engage in expensive hobbies or drink alcohol. The only thing he spends money on is gaming. And that doesn't cost much. So, the allowance I give him should be sufficient. So what did he use $5,500 for? He's not the type to cheat, so I had no idea. In other words, I couldn't believe Edwards would embezzle. So this must be a lie from Victor. That's what I concluded. Come to think of it, Victor is a careless and not very bright person. He loves gambling and has even spent most of his salary on it. Of course, that's what I heard from Edwards. So there might be some inaccuracies, but it's more credible than Victor's own words. Moreover, I heard that Victor has borrowed money from Edwards several times. He always paid it back. But he might not be able to do so someday. Considering all these things, it's natural to think this is a lie from Victor. Victor must be in financial trouble now, but for some reason, he couldn't borrow from Edwards. He couldn't borrow from others because he would have to repay them. So he thought of getting money from me by half threatening me, thinking he wouldn't have to pay it back. That's it, I was certain. As I silently thought about all this, Victor said,
Are you listening?
"Oh, yes, I'm just shocked."
I thought so. That's why I wanted to handle it privately and ask you to secretly bring the money.
I see. Is that so?
Yes. So bring the money now.
Victor continued speaking. I realized I might end up having to give him the money. That would be unacceptable. I needed to think of something, and then an idea struck me. So I asked Victor, do you have any evidence?
Evidence?
Yes, evidence that Edwards embezzled the money. I thought this would surely throw Victor off his game as he doesn't think things through deeply. But surprisingly, Victor responded,
I have evidence, but I can't show it right now.
Then I can't give you the money.
Okay, fine. Let's meet tomorrow at the company office.
You'll show me the evidence?
Yes, but you understand, right?
For now, I'll see the evidence and then decide.
Great. Once you see the evidence, you'll give the money, okay?
With that insistence from Victor, I ended the call. Probably Victor was planning to fabricate evidence now. Anyway, I would find out the truth by asking Edwards, but there was one problem. Edwards was not here. He's currently in France. At the instruction of a car manufacturer that deals with Edwards' factory, he went to France to supervise a parts factory there. Moreover, he's in a rural area with poor connections, so I can't contact him while he's there. This is troublesome, not being able to contact him at a time like this. Naturally, Victor must have timed this. It's annoying to even have to consider such things. That's what I think. I have no choice. I have to handle this myself. I made up my mind, and the next day I went to the factory office as Victor had instructed. I took a deep breath outside the office and then discreetly pressed the record button on my mobile phone. Then I entered the office. Inside there were several clerks and Victor. "Hello, Victor."
Oh, Christina, good of you to come.
Saying that, Victor guided me to the reception room. Then he opened up a laptop he brought.
These are invoices and purchase orders. Do you understand them?
Yes, I used to be a clerk here myself.
Right, then take a look at this.
Victor showed me a document file. It was labeled as an invoice. Invoice, total amount including tax $5,500. I spoke without realizing. Hearing that, Victor said to me,
That's right, but this company doesn't exist.
"So this is a fake invoice for the transactions?"
It seems Edwards processed it himself without going through the clerks.
Victor rambled on with excuses, but it was clearly a fake. It said invoice, but it wasn't in the usual format. Does he think he can fool me, a former clerk, with this level of fabrication? But arguing now would end the conversation. I needed to let Victor incriminate himself for proper retribution. I discreetly touched the pen in my chest pocket. Then I asked Victor, did Edwards really do this?
Yes, if you pay me the $5,500, I'll take care of it quietly.
But
you should just pay. It's for the best for you and Edwards.
I got my evidence. Now I wanted to make a copy of the document file. But with Victor here, it seemed impossible. Thinking of another way, I pretended to stagger in front of Victor. How can I... Saying this dramatically, I deliberately knocked the laptop keyboard. At that moment, I pressed a certain key twice. Victor panicked and checked the screen.
Be careful! What if the evidence gets deleted?
Sorry.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't mean to.
Well, there's a backup anyway.
Victor closed the document file, then he shut the laptop and moved closer to me.
Now that you have seen the evidence, you'll pay, right? There's a family gathering at Dad's house this weekend. You know about that, right?
Actually, there is a meeting with all the relatives at my father-in-law, Borden's house this weekend. It seems there will be discussions about the succession of the company as per Borden's wishes. I have been told to attend in place of Edwards, who is in France. Victor had said to bring the money there. I'll think about it.
You better just pay up for your own good.
Victor laughed with a laugh that seemed villainous to me. Well, then, With that, I left the reception room. As I exited the office, I unexpectedly found Victor's wife Violet waiting. Hello, Christina. Violet, what is it? You heard Victor's story, right? Violet looked me up and down. Apparently, she knew about Victor threatening me. This isn't good. I thought so internally because Victor isn't that smart, but Violet is different. She's quite intelligent, actually, but she only uses her intelligence for bad purposes. Sly and deceitful, she is lived by tricking men. Violet is that kind of woman. So this was a critical situation. I pretended to be calm. I heard Victor's story, so you better just pay up quietly. Thank you for the advice, but I have no intention of paying. With that, I tried to leave quickly. Suddenly, Violet grabbed my arm. Then she reached into my pocket. Ah, hell! I let out a voice involuntarily because Violet had taken my mobile phone from my pocket. You recorded the conversation? Violet asked while looking at the screen. Give it back? I won't. Saying that, Violet stopped the recording. Then she restrained me with one hand and played the recorded file. Victor's conversation with me began to play. I see. You were planning to expose us with this? You thought you wouldn't get caught? That's... I couldn't reply to her accusation. Violet laughed and deleted the file. Huh? That was the moment I lost one piece of evidence. Then Violet took out her mobile phone. You need to be more careful with eavesdropping like this. She played something like music. Then suddenly, my voice came from Violet's mobile phone. So I'll pay for the renovations. I remembered this conversation. It was from a phone call with Mom a while back. My family home's bathroom had become old and Mom had consulted me about renovating it. But she was planning to give up because the estimate was higher than expected, so I had offered to pay for the renovation. Why is that conversation? How? You married Edwards for the money, didn't you? That's not true. But it could sound like that, or should I edit it to sound that way? Violet whispered in my ear, almost like a threat. I was scared by her words and couldn't say anything, just hung my head. Then, as Violet pushed my mobile phone back into my pocket, now that the recording is gone and we have this, you understand you have to pay, right? What? Pay quietly. Violet murmured and slipped past me, then entered the office. What a pair! I won't forgive them, ever. Maybe Violet was the one pulling the strings behind Victor. At least it's clear she's egging him on. I need to be more careful in dealing with this. I immediately sent Victor a message. I'll pay the money. Just that one sentence. Of course, I had no intention of paying. But that one message would lure Violet into a false sense of security. It would prevent her from manipulating the recording of our conversation, and without doing so, it would be difficult to punish Violet. She is that cunning. It's a bit of a gamble, but I think I can outsmart Victor, who's weak at gambling. I re-energized myself and waited for the weekend. Then, on the weekend, as I arrived at my in-laws' house, I saw that Victor and his wife had just arrived. Victor immediately approached me. About the money, there are relatives here, so let's talk somewhere else after the meeting. Right. Victor, thinking he succeeded, nodded readily to my suggestion. Then Violet approached, so I quickly went to my mother-in-law. I spent my time doing various tasks as directed by mother-in-law while serving coffee. Barton entered the room. As he sat in front of all the relatives, the room fell silent. Then Barton started speaking. Today I've gathered you to discuss the future management of the company. Dad, it's about the succession, right? Victor interjected excitedly. Barton's expression darkened a bit. Calm down, Victor. That's part of it. But we're discussing the company's management first. Sorry. Victor shrank back, and laughter could be heard from the relatives. It seems everyone knows Victor isn't very smart. I continued my tasks, feeling embarrassed for him, then Borden
Christina, can you play this video on the TV?
handed me a laptop. It displayed graphs of the company's performance. That's when I had an idea. I realized this was my chance. I nodded quietly. Understood, I'll get it ready now. I connected the laptop to the large TV, preparing to display the screen. Meanwhile, I inserted a prepared memory card. After everything was set up, I told Borden, "It's ready, I'll start the output."
Thank you, Christina.
With Borden's approval, I projected the video on the TV. At the same time, I played the audio from the memory card.
If you pay me $5,500, I'll take care of it quietly.
Victor's voice threatening me in the office played in front of the relatives.
What's this?
Victor panicked. He tried to stop the audio, but Borden stopped him.
What? Victor, I want to hear it all.
Victor turned pale. Violet, surprised to hear the audio she had deleted, was also visible. Then the audio switched to Violet threatening me. "You were planning to expose us with this? You thought you wouldn't get caught?" The conversation from when Violet deleted my phone recording played. Violet looked perplexed, wondering how the audio remained. I smirked at Violet. Of course, I wasn't careless. I had taken extra precautions. Before meeting Victor, I had prepared to record audio on my mobile phone, but recording with the phone is common and not foolproof. So, as a backup, I had a pen-shaped IC recorder. I recorded the audio with that as well. That's what made the difference.
What's this, Victor?
Victor couldn't even come up with an excuse. He's not very smart, it seems. Violet, on the other hand, quickly made an excuse. "Borden, it's not true. This is Christina's trap," she shouted, glaring at me. Victor joined in.
Yeah, it's impossible that I would threaten Edward's wife. This is just part of the conversation. So, Violet and I are innocent.
Borden's gaze shifted to me. After looking at me intently, Borden said,
Christina, do you have anything to say?
"This is the truth. I was threatened by Victor and Violet."
Like how?
"Exactly as in the audio. Edwards embezzled funds and I was told to compensate for it." As I stated the facts, Victor interrupted the conversation.
There is no proof. If it's not fabricated, then show us the evidence.
Honestly, this was the most troubling part. Even though I had presented the audio as evidence, if they claimed it was fake, I had no counter. As I struggled, Victor got carried away.
That's right. Don't frame me without evidence.
"There is no proof, right? It's a lie." Violet also started making a fuss. I sighed, then pointing at Victor's laptop, I asked, "Can I see that, please?"
My laptop?
"There's evidence on it." Quickly, I took Victor's laptop and handed it to Borden.
Dad, please, give it back.
Victor pleaded with Borden, but his mouth was smiling. Judging from his demeanor, the incriminating document file had likely been deleted. Glancing at Violet, she too had a faint smile on her face. I took a deep breath before saying, "There should be a document file on that laptop. Please look for it, Borden." I tell Borden. Borden started searching for the file. However, all he found were company documents. The fake document file was nowhere to be found.
Just company documents.
Borden looked at me with a disappointed expression. "That's strange. Maybe it was deleted?" I replied to Borden, feigning panic. Borden frowned.
"This is troublesome. I don't know whose side to take."
Borden was deep in thought. Victor and Violet couldn't hide their smug smiles, looking triumphant. "There's nothing we can do if the file's been deleted." As I said this, Violet quickly stood up. Then staring at me, "Let's kick out this liar. It's for the best for our family." "Borden," she declared. Victor joined in the uproar.
"Can't believe Edwards married such a bad woman. She should be thrown off the company."
The relatives quietly observed the commotion. It seemed they were still unable to decide whose side was right. It was time to play my trump card. I braced myself and said to Borden, Borden, one last thing. Please check the screenshot folder.
Screenshots?
Yeah, it's a function to save the screen. Glancing at Violet, I saw her face turn pale. Apparently, she realized what I meant. A screenshot of the computer screen can be easily saved with a button press.
Oh, I found it. This is it, labeled as an invoice.
Barton glared at Victor. Victor looked at Violet with a panicked face.
What? Why? She didn't touch the laptop.
But Violet, seemingly admitting defeat, slumped down in disappointment. When Victor showed me the fake invoice, I had pushed my hand against the keyboard. Actually, at that moment, I took a screenshot. There was no need to name it, so there was no screen prompt to name the file, which is why Victor didn't notice. However, the screen does flicker for a moment when taking a screenshot. If he had noticed that, maybe, but Victor didn't notice. Violet probably thought that by deleting the document file there would be no evidence left. After all, it's not possible to copy it in an instant or save it under a different name. Additionally, my message saying, "I'll pay the money," must have helped lower their guard. It worked this time, but I don't think this method will always be effective. Anyway, Borden decided I was right and scolded Victor and Violet on the spot. Confronted by Borden, Victor quickly confessed the whole situation. Unable to pay his gambling debts, he was in dire straits and broke down crying. Violet also admitted she had schemed to make me pay to cover Victor's debt. Victor and Violet, scolded by the gathered relatives, had to make a deep apology to me. But this wasn't a matter that could be easily forgiven. Legally, this was a case of extortion. Though it was a family matter, I didn't want to make a big deal of it. Still, Borden decided that having people like Victor in the company wasn't good. He fired Victor and disowned him. Naturally, being fired meant no severance pay. Victor and Violet, burdened with debt, left town. But they didn't divorce. Apparently, Violet couldn't bear to abandon a sobbing Victor. Later, a business associate informed Edwards about Victor and Violet's whereabouts. They had been doing odd jobs here and there, but ultimately couldn't escape their debtors. In desperation, they fled to a factory they had dealt with and begged the owner to take on their debt. In return, they agreed to work there, living on the premises. They are still working there as live-in workers. With Victor gone, Edwards was determined to be the successor to the factory. Now, I think I need to be more supportive of Edwards. Despite everything, I can't help but respect Violet's compassion. To not abandon someone so hopeless is something I can't imagine doing. Well, my Edwards is smart and incomparably better than Victor.